Hey guys, welcome to the Bin Zone. On today's video, we're going to be talking about Season 3 of Dark. So if you haven't seen Season 3, stop this video right now, go check it out, because from this moment on, we're going straight spoiler heavy. You have been warned. Now for those of you who have seen Dark, get your notepads ready, get your conspiracy boards ready, because from this moment forward, we're diving deep into all the threads that make Dark dark. Season 3 starts off right where Season 2 left off, and we have Martha from this parallel universe taking Jonas and going somewhere. Now, before we get too deep into the video, I will say this. Dark Season 3 has answered every question we've had except the two major questions all the fans have been dying to know. And the most important question in all of Dark is what happened to Waller's eye? No, seriously, that's not the most important. It's who in the right mind gave Helge Doppler some pussy? Straight up. Like, who slept with this man to create Peter Doppler? My mind still can't wrap around who would do that. But on a real note, guys, let's dive into Season 3. Season 3 starts off right at the end of Season 2, and we have Martha taking Jonas and going to another universe. Now, for us to establish some principles so you guys can follow along, we're following two universes or two worlds for the majority of this season. So to keep things real simple, we're gonna call the first universe, Universe 1. That's the universe we're used to, the one from the first two seasons. And then we're gonna call Martha 2's world, Universe 2. And then when we get to the origin world, we'll just call that Universe 3, even though that's technically Universe Prime, but whatever. Let's call it Universe Prime. Yeah, there you go. Let's call it Universe Prime. We have Universe Prime, Universe 1, and Universe 2. Now that that's been established, we find ourselves in Universe 2 with Martha 2 and Jonas, and she kind of just leaves them and bucks out of there, leaving Jonas in this brave new world. And this universe, Universe 2, is very similar to the main universe, but with key differences, which is what makes this season super interesting, is because we're familiarized with these characters, we're familiarized with this world, but then now we take those characters and we flip them somewhat. We're following Jonas meeting these characters again, also for the first time, because in this universe, Martha doesn't know Jonas. Jonas does not exist because Mikko never went to the cave and never ended in 1986. Therefore, Jonas was never born in that universe. And with that being said, we see that Martha, Mikko, and Magnus, along with Katarina, live in Jonas's house, and Ulrich is now living with Hannah, and Hannah is pregnant with Ulrich's baby. You would think Hannah finally got what she wanted, and Ulrich is finally with Hannah. That would satiate their desires, but no, Ulrich is a piece of shit, and he's cheating on Hannah with Charlotte of all people, because Charlotte is now cheating on Peter as opposed to Peter, who was cheating on her in the first season with Benny. Those things right there, it's like the characters are the same. Ulrich is a cheating scumbag, but then these slight variations, him cheating with Charlotte. Peter is a priest. Helge has his scar differently. Francesca is the one who's deaf and uses sign language, while Elizabeth can speak in this universe. So you have those different variations, but the key purpose of the second universe is to establish that there is no Jonas. And in that universe, it is Martha who is the traveler. It is Martha who travels between time and worlds. And she is the one who is Jonas's counterpart, because these universes parallel and mirror each other. And that causes Jonas to eventually become Adam and Martha to eventually become Eva or Eve. And they kind of create the duality of Adam and Eve, kind of biblical references. And I guess Winden would be the representation of the Garden of Eden, where humanity is born, essentially. And it's a funny parallel because Dark likes to use biblical references. And if you look back at Adam and Eve, Martha and Jonas, they are the catalyst for creating much of the population of Winden. But then what that means, we have to get into the complicated family tree. But just know that they are related to all the most prominent characters in the show, all come from their interactions and them perpetuating the time loop. While we're getting established in Universe 2, at the same time, the characters in Universe 1 are also doing their thing. We see that Hannah is in 1954 and she is with Egon Tiedemann, and she is now pregnant with his child, which means that Claudia now has a sister that comes from Hannah, which means that the Tiedemann family is also connected to the Nielsen family, who's also connected to the Cornwalds. And when Dark tells you everything is connected, everything is connected. And we know this child ends up becoming Celia, and also she ends up becoming Bartaj's wife, who bores him 2 children, Agnes as well as Noah, meaning Bartaj is the father of Agnes, who is the mother of Trant, who is the father of Ulrich, who's the father of Martha, Magnus, and Mikkel. And Mikkel being the father of Jonas means that Bartaj is the great grandfather of Jonas and great grandfather of Martha, which makes it even more intricate, and that now ties the fact that Celia is the sister of Claudia Tiedemann, which connects the families even more, because now that means Noah being the father of Charlotte, who is the mother of Franziska, ties in the Doppler. It's a lot. Just know all the characters are related to each other, therefore even doubling down on the aspect of the Garden of Eden coming from Adam and Eve. And that's Hannah's role in this, to create the environment, to create, essentially populate Winden and populate the world with our characters. Now we have her rival, or the person who is her counterpart, being Katerina. Katerina went back in time and she ended up at 1986, and she found Ulrich in one of the most touching scenes. And her sole goal now is to save her son and save her husband from 1986. But in Dark, everything has to happen for a reason. The fact that she's in 1986 was already foreshadowed in the 2nd season, because her mother, who's abusive to young Katerina, also kills older Katerina by the lake. And in season 2, Bartaj mentions that there was someone who was killed by the lake, and a throwaway line in the 2nd season, but that woman ends up becoming Katerina, and that's how Jonas finds her pendant of St. Christopher, who was left there by her dead body. And that same pendant traces back to 1953, because Egon gives it to Hannah, who ends up leaving it for Katerina's mother. And remember, in 1953, Hannah was using the name Katerina, and that inspired Katerina's mother to name her Katerina, connecting every tissue yet again. All the plot points from the first 2 seasons are coming together in this 3rd season. Back in the 2nd universe, we're learning more about just what is happening, and we're learning more just how similar Martha and Jonas are. Because Martha and Jonas are the same, they're mirrors of each other, they're parallels. Adam is the mirror of Eve. There also exists a future version of Martha, who is the counterpart to the future adult version of Jonas the Stranger. And it's from that Martha we come to understand the origin of everything, because Adam eventually figures it out, and that the origin of this loop, the one perpetuating this loop to continue over and over and over again, is the new character, the trio, the origin. He is the origin and the end, the alpha and the omega of this time loop. And throughout the entirety of the 3rd season, we see him popping up in different universes and different time periods, perpetuating the events to create the time loop. He got the power plant of Winden approved. He also got Bernd Doppler out the picture to create room for Claudia to become the chairman of the Winden power plant. He got Egon's wife Doris to leave her, and he's the one who went back in time and ended up killing Old Man Townhouse, the blind version, not the one that we're used to in 1986, who plays an even bigger role, but the old man Townhouse, I guess, who's blind, and he takes him out of the picture. That gives rise to Jonas to become the leader of Sic Mundus, and therefore he becomes that much closer to being Adam. So the origin is the one perpetuating the loop. He's the one that's behind the scenes, moving everything behind to make sure that the events can happen again, perpetuating this loop, which ends up putting him at great odds with Adam, even though he is Adam's son, because at this point, Adam is weary and tired of all this bullshit. Like, Jonas has suffered a lot from the first season. Like, if I was Jonas, Jesus, and then we find out that Jonas can't even kill himself because he grows up to become Adam, and that's because your past self cannot die so far as you have a future version of yourself, and that's because you have to eventually grow up to become that version, which brings us to a very interesting theory of quantum entanglement that this show actually doubles down on and actually expands upon. And quantum entanglement is kind of like a choke point in the space-time continuum. And from that choke point, that's when the variations of the multiverse can happen, because Dark subscribes to the many worlds theory, aka the multiverse theory. And that's why we come to find out there exist 2 versions of Jonas. And that's when things really get interesting and really allow the creators of Dark to mess around and play around, because now not only do we have multiple universes, but within one universe there are variations of actions creating ultimate worlds and ultimate choke points and ultimate points in time. And they explain it very simply. Imagine this line right here being an arrow for time, right? And if you look on the line, you see that there's one side of it here and one side over here. Both are going the same direction. Both are the line, but there are different sides of it. So for example, there exists a duality within the main universe. One of the Jonases goes to the alternate world, Earth 2 with Martha 2, and the other one goes in the bunker, grows up to become the stranger who eventually grows up to be Adam, while the other one dies in universe 2, causing Martha 2 to kill him, but a different variation of Martha 2. Because at this point, the second universe seems to be far more advanced than the first universe. Their time machine is superior. It can go forward, backwards, anywhere in time, any universe, as opposed to a big clunking box that they carried around for the most part. And Eve seems to be 10 steps ahead of Adam, Jonas, who doesn't know what he's doing, while she just wants the origin to continue. She is a mother, which brings us to another main point of Dark. Most of these characters' choices are selfish in nature, and that's what perpetuates everything and continues the cycle going never-endingly, because they all do selfish decisions. Noah's actions are justified because they took his daughter from him, and then everyone seems to be working with Adam because they want to go to a paradise, but he's lying to everybody. There is no paradise. Jonas, aka Adam, wants to cease everything from existing because he realizes you can't break the loop. So if you can't break the loop, I might as well erase everything. And then if I don't exist, I can't suffer any longer. Even though that means giving up Martha, that means giving up my son, that means killing my own mother, because he ends up killing Hannah. Because half the shit in the show is Hannah's fault, and her lust for Ulrich causes a lot of character decisions. Even though she gave birth to Jonas, and Celia, which populates Winden, she stole future Jonas's time machine in the second season, which got him stuck in 1888 in the first place, which made him become Adam. He did not want to become Adam, but giving all that time and growing up and getting burnt trying to create a time machine, all because your mother stole your original time machine to go try to be with a guy who's not your dad in the first place. Like, Hannah is a problem, a major problem. And because of the way that Dark is structured, and because there exists variations in the time stream and variations, and characters appear in different time periods as themselves with the multiple goals, when we see Martha kill Jonas, we know that that Jonas, who by the way is Prime Jonas, original Jonas, that's the Jonas we have been following since the first season. When Martha kills him in the second universe, and then we see Adam kill another version of Martha, those are just different variations because of the quantum entanglement, because of the choke point. They can die and continue living, which brings us to the key to ending the entire time loop and ending Dark, and that is Claudia Tiedemann, the White Devil, the one who's been portrayed as the bad guy for the first 2 seasons, the master manipulator. She outsmarted Adam and Eve. Like, Claudia is the MVP of this show because Claudia actually figured everything out. Claudia smarted them because at this point we know that Adam has Sigmundus and Eve has her own group, which she also puts in direct competition and contrast with Adam's group, and she has her own Claudia working with her. So that Claudia is the one that gives Claudia of Earth 1 the mechanisms to travel. But Claudia's main goal, again, which circles back to the main theme of Dark, Claudia's main goal is to save Regina. So therefore she kills Claudia from Earth 2, assumes her identity and takes her better time machine, and that allows Claudia to go from working with Jonas to working with Eve to understanding what's happening. And then Claudia does something no other character has done. She figured out how to get out of the loop. And that's because both worlds suffer the apocalypse. And during that time, time actually stands still for a fraction of a second. And in that fraction of a second, you can actually enter the time stream. And Claudia actually did this and found out that those 2 worlds were created from one prime world. And that Earth and that universe is the one in which H.G. Townhouse created the first ever time machine. So remember back in season 1 when they had the question similar to the chicken and the egg, what came first? the time machine or HG creating it, because HG was given the blueprints that he didn't make yet by the future, so we don't know where the actual point happens. Well, this season addresses that, and that is he actually created it in 1986 because his son died, and by him creating a time machine, he inadvertently rips a fabric in space and time, thus creating the two worlds that we know, and thus starting those time loops to repeat infinitely, because Claudia let us know that this has been happening infinite amount of times. And I know what you're thinking, did Claudia die in the second season? But also remember, the quantum entanglement means that there are two Claudias existing in that world based on the fact that two Jonas exist. However, even though Claudia was able to decipher this, she can't do anything about it because the parallel universes are manifested in the form of Jonas and Martha. Those two together have to be the ones to go to the prime Earth, and they have to stop their universe from being created. And the bond between these two characters, the love they have, they even share a child. Their love traverses universes to create this tragic story that happens endless amount of times because they don't want to give up on each other, and they're perfect for each other. Never forget that. Never forget that. So when they go to the prime Earth and they save H.G. Townhouse's kid from dying, that stops him from creating the time machine, essentially stopping the worlds from being created and ending the loop of time. That is a very bittersweet ending in Dark, because at the end of the day, only two characters really won, right? Claudia won because she got to save Regina. Even though it might not be her Regina, it is a Regina that gets to live, because we know in Earth 1 and Earth 2, Regina always dies of cancer. But in the Prime Universe, because the wind and power plant never gets made, she never gets cancer and she gets to live. And the other person who actually wins is Adam. He wanted to end it all in the first place, and by young Jonas ending it all and erasing the two universes, he wins. He doesn't have to suffer anymore. And his last moment is him and Eve holding hands and becoming nothingness. And that is a bittersweet ending, because all our favorite characters no longer exist. All our favorite characters can't achieve their dreams. Also, their highest highs are gone and their lowest lows are gone because they no longer exist. And Jonas would rather not exist than lose Martha over and over again. And that is a sober, dark note. And that is why Dark, to me, has got its name, because the ending, it's so dark. Granted, they end the time loop and end the suffering, but by doing so, they cease to exist. And in the final scene of the season, we see the characters who aren't involved with the Nielsen and Conwald and Tiedemann lineage, so to speak. And these characters are the ones who are not birthed from Hannah, who are not birthed from Jonas and Eve. And that's a really scarce population. Like I said earlier, the show plays upon the Adam and Eve dynamic and trope. And because Adam and Eve are no longer in this universe, and because of that, we're left with Hannah, Waller, Peter, Regina, and Katerina. Also Benny, because Benny is the brother Benny's the sister of Waller. And these characters are the only major characters who are not directly related by blood to the Nielsens, to Jonas technically. Because we know if we go through the family tree, Celia, Jonas, Trant, all of these characters are somewhat the father or mother of themselves, and that creates an infinite incestuous loop in Winden. But once Adam and Eve is gone, and Adam and Eve if Adam and Eve are brother and sister and they have incest and they create their kids, that also takes another biblical look at the overarching theme of Dark, especially because we know the whole thing of 33, the lunar cycles, all the biblical terms used. But with that said, one question really eludes me, and that is Trant's father was never revealed. We don't know who Trant's father is, even though we know Agnes said he was a priest, so that could mean Noah is Trant's father, and with all the incest happening, that could be the case. And also, Regina is not Trant's daughter. Regina is the daughter of Bernd Doppler, who is Helge's father. So Regina is actually the brother of Helge Doppler, which to me was a mind blown. Even with that mind blowing thing happening, without Adam and Eve, Winden goes back to being the way it was, and Hannah is having a kid named Jonas by Waller, which is hopefully this version of Jonas, like a reincarnation, if you will have a much better life because there is no time loop to happen. Anyway, guys, that's my breakdown. That's my ending explained of Dark Season 3. I'd love to hear your feedback in the comment section below. And did you guys enjoy this season? Did it give you the satisfactory ending you were hoping for? Let me know in the comment section below, guys. And if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button if you guys have not already. And until next time, binge on.